He is an auto racing icon and considered by many to be the greatest race car driver in the history of the sport. Mario Andretti's achievements are legendary, and the world watched as he won the Daytona 500, the Indianapolis 500, as well as 4 IndyCar titles, and ultimately the Formula One World Championship in 1978, an unprecedented trifecta. And no other race car driver has ever won all 3 titles. And Mario took the checkered flag 111 times during his career, a career that stretched 5 decades and across 6 continents. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great honor to introduce to you one of auto racing's most famous living legends, Mario Andretti. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dr. Bond. You're very kind.
Well, you've had a very amazing career, but I want to kind of step back in time a bit. I was doing a little study on your family history, and in 1948, you and your family ended up in a refugee camp in Lucca, Italy, because of the Istria Exodus. What was it like for you and your brother Aldo? Because you were only, 8 years old at the time?
Well, as kids, you obviously know that something is not right for sure because of you look at your parents' demeanor, attitude, and conversation. But at the same time, kids are probably the best ones to adapt because you go to school and you have buddies there and you play, you do all those things. So it did not affect us as kids at all. And I have a twin brother Aldo and a sister Anna Maria, and again you just go along with it and you make the best of it. So again. One thing for sure, thanks to my dad, we were never hungry, never cold. He took good care of us always.
Now, you and
Make sure.
Aldo are twins, correct?
Yes, indeed.
Uh, Identical?
Identical twins, yes.
So am I. So we have that in common.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Well, what is your fondest memories of Aldo?
His positive attitude throughout. Aldo was, in fact, that was a perfect example for me to follow, quite honestly. Always thinking, I know it's a cliche about looking at your glass always to be half full. And by that I mean that, he and I started out as kids with the same dreams. We had the same passion coming on, and the objectives obviously was to be both race drivers, and we started all that together. When we arrived in the United States, we 2 years after arriving here, we started building a car to race locally. We raced locally. We won. We did a lot of all the good things together. And but he was not as fortunate as me because it started out at the very end, the very first season, when he had some critical injuries. In the last race, and he was in a coma for a long, long time. Had to take a sabbatical, continued for 10 more years, and then he had another accident in 1969 that ended his career. But at the same time, he went on and he had a business, in fact, that we had a business together, and he ran it. And um, and but his passion of being a race driver was all over. But at the same time, he just became my biggest cheerleader. Never, ever, ever once thinking, why me? Why, I wish I could be in your place and all that. And that was a perfect example of how to lead you with your life, with whatever you're handed, that you can put your chin in your socks and live there, or you can just live highly and look at yourself in the mirror every morning and feel pretty good about yourself.
Well, you bring up a good point here with Aldo, who had suffered some injuries and a couple of crashes, and you have seen all of the sports. I mean, you've seen Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, IMSA. You've seen it grow from the early stages where you actually saw Alberto Ascari race, And from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, into the 80s, and now, you've seen it where the sport technically had no safety whatsoever, to now we're looking at aero screens and halos on Formula One cars. I mean, what was that like back then, that when you got into a race car, you knew it was dangerous, but just the thrill of winning, did that overcome the thought of how dangerous the sports really were?
Well, there's no question about it that if you were going to dwell on the safety aspect, because that's all we knew at the time. I mean, we accepted, it had to be accepted. The tracks were what they were. I mean, there were bridge abutments, there were this and that you could hit, and the race cars themselves. I mean, very little protection if you got upside down. I had flimsy roll bars or something like that, but at the same time, you didn't have the structural complexity of today's cars in any way, including the stock cars, which were much safer at the beginning as well, even back in the 70s or 60s or 70s, vis-a-vis the open wheel car. But the sport has evolved, and going back to, okay, why did we race? Did we, again, like you said, were we concerned about the safety? Yes, to some degree, but you didn't dare, if you dwelled on it, you didn't belong in the business. That's all there's to it, because you had to go in there with your eyes wide open. But at the same time, if you hold back half of 1% in your driving, somebody's going to run over you. And it's that simple. So you're all in or all out. That's the way I always looked at it. I think in some ways you figure, well, you guys are crazy. Well, maybe so. I mean, you look around. I mean, I look back at my career, how blessed I've been, quite honestly, Doctor, that I lost so many, I lost closest friends. I had, my twin brother, that suffered from that. My younger son, Jeff, had a career-ending injury at Indianapolis in 1991, and things like that. So again, it's the sport could be, and it was cruel in so many ways for so many people, so many drivers. Um, but somehow I dodged the bullets myself, and I was able, as you said, pretty much drive race cars for 50 years, and that gave me the opportunity, to probably accomplish all of my most ambitious goals, quite honestly. And again, that's why I say it all the time, and I'll repeat it. I count my blessings every day.
Well, was there ever a particular racetrack with a particular car that was probably so scary that you maybe questioned your career?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I've raced some of the most dangerous one. You take the Nürburgring in Germany, for instance. No question. As far as the safety aspect, it just was non-existent. And the first time that I raced there was in '69. So it was bare minimums there. So, but I'm just happy that I had the opportunity to race there, because they stopped actually racing there on the long circuit just because of that. It just, no matter what they did, there's no way they could ever comply with what is, required, in modern times. So, but again, it's just, it was what it was. But I never once, if I was going to enter a race, being doubtful, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, then I should just hang it up. You just, that attitude never existed with me. And maybe I'm stupid, maybe I'm crazy, but that's the way it was.
Well, I think you have to be a little crazy to become the champion that you are, because, with all of the drivers today, there has to be an intense focus. It doesn't matter if it's NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One. You have to know what you want and how to get there and cross that finish line. With you, let's say, if you were 21 years old today, which racing series would you actually want to race in?
what I did primarily, which is open wheel single seaters, which would be Indy cars or Formula One. That's the part that attracted me the most. I did the other disciplines because I was curious, and more than that, I think I was interested in seeing just what's going on the other side of the fence, and having the opportunity to be driving for some top teams. I scored some, some good results there that mean everything. It's not a matter of, okay, I'm going to drive, something that's out of my rodeo, if you will, and just experience that. I wanted to win, and uh, and that was the ultimate satisfaction that I derived. But going back, single seaters are the purest form of the sport, no question. They're not a derivative of anything. They're just built for that purpose, just like a fighter aircraft, and only to go fast and win. And that's it. It's the only way I can put it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Formula One is for me out of all motorsports, that's my favorite, and I've been following Formula One since 1975. And you're one of the very rare race car drivers where you raced in different types of series and different types of races. The only one that even comes to my mind that was almost doing what you did was AJ Foyt, but I don't think AJ ever drove an F1. His deal was NASCAR, midget cars, and definitely Indy. How do you
Yeah,
become a well-rounded driver?
I think it's you're driven by desire. The desire to do something, and that's something I have plenty of. This burning passion. To be driving, and that's the only thing that works in a business that's so competitive. But I just got that satisfaction, that personal satisfaction. I I look forward to going to work every single day. I mean, I couldn't get enough of it. I mean, that's my wife. I mean, she's not here anymore, but I mean, uh, but at the same time, she was actually such a powerful force in in just keeping me serene, if you will, doctor, that to the point that never complained about, oh, Mario, and I knew I was, you're very selfish, what about some picnics, like everybody else is doing over some weekends where you're actually not racing your primary commitment. And because I used to plug up, if I had I give you for instance, I was even the year where I won the world championship. I'm testing in Silverstone, England, on a Wednesday, and we have the following weekend is an open weekend in Formula One. And so the test was over, and Colin Chapman says, "Okay, Mario, what are you doing? You staying here? You going back home?" Yeah, I'm going back home, and I'm racing this weekend for Roger Penske, in Michigan. Did I have to do that? No, but that's it. I wanted to plug every hole that I had. And, I used to race 35, 40, if you look at some of my record, like 51 races a year, which, and sometimes going to different continents at the same time, and so I get busy, but that's what I wanted. And going back to my wife, but having that support, not just by saying, oh, yeah, do it, but just not nagging me or just even making me feel guilty or in any way, spend more time with the kids and all that. No. She was just quietly supporting me, and that's what I needed. And I only realized a lot of that, how important that was to me, later on in life when you obviously have time to just go back and and think about what has happened, and I figure, oh my goodness, I couldn't have done without her, and when you reflect is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's always great to have a very strong woman behind you. I'm lucky enough to have one of those. Been married 34 years, and always being supportive. And I just love hearing that, Mario. And you bring up Colin Chapman. How would you describe racing for Enzo Ferrari and racing for Colin Chapman? What's the differences?
Well, two icons. They're as important to Formula One. And when you just mention their name, Formula One comes to mind immediately. Colin Chapman, look at what he's done, how many world champions he created, and of course, the Enzo Ferrari, the same way. I mean, these individuals were magical. And, to have them on your side, it was everything that any driver could dream of. I go back to 1965. I got to tell you this. I was already, I was in my rookie year at Indianapolis. Jim Clark won the race. I finished third. Of course, Colin Chapman was there, and I befriended him throughout the month. We were there, and but again, in the back of my mind, I said, during my career, I hope I get the chance to do Formula One. Of course, that was always in the back of my mind. Even when I was driving midgets, I was thinking of that. So we were saying our goodbyes at the banquet after the race, and I told Colin, I said, Colin, someday I would like to do Formula One. And he said, Mario, when you think you're ready, you call me. I will have a car for you. Can you imagine how I felt at that moment? I thought I just went to heaven. And so it's moments like that. I think that just give you all that energy, to just what, it's up to me now. Up to me now to just prepare myself the way as much as possible. I was lucky enough to be able to join the Le Mans program with Ford, which was just just immense program. A lot of testing, a lot of development, and all road racing, and that did wonders for me because I befriended. We were very close friends with Bruce McLaren. In fact, we won Sebring together. But during the testing, I used to go and watch his how he was dealing with it, especially the, the slow corners primarily, how he would rotate the car and so on and so forth. He was quite the specialist in those areas, and I learned so much, and that's what I needed. So 3 years later, I figured I'm ready, and I called him, and he said, "I will have a car for you." And we tested in Monza, in Italy, and then anyway, it's a long story there that I didn't race it, but my debut was at the USGP 2 weeks later, and I was on pole. I put the car on pole, so that was as good as it could get, as you can imagine. I was teammates with Graham Hill, and I had never even seen Watkins Glen. That was to me, it was as new as any other track in the world, So that was a good, again, a lot of satisfaction in that from that standpoint. But again, I was fortunate enough to be with top equipment, and that's what it takes.
Well, I've heard stories about Enzo Ferrari. Was he a hard man to impress?
Well, anyone is hard to impress. It's just that the one thing that I noticed that he always appreciated a driver really giving its all. And by that, I mean, I'll tell you, in 1969 was the first official race that I did for Ferrari. I had done one before, I think was doing some testing. But anyway, I was in Italy and Monza, and that's the only race that he would go to. He would not really travel outside the country, and so he was there for that race. And I was my teammate was Chris Amon, which was very good, very quick, and my first time there, so I was quite new, and I was trying to. I think I got to impress the old man here, So, and I'm out there, and I crunched the car a little bit, during practice. And I figure, oh my goodness, oh my God, now I hope I have a return ticket back to home, and all that. And I'm pulling in the pits, and there he's standing, and he's got a slight smile on his face. I figure, and then later on, I realized that, he would never, ever, like, get on a driver, penalize a driver that's really giving his all. Sometimes you got to crunch a car a little bit. That means you're at the limit and all that, and I found that I figured, well, there's a real racer here. And because later, many years back, like when I was testing in Furano just before my very last Formula One race, which I did for Ferrari in 1982, substituting for, unfortunately, there were two fatalities on that team that year. And I was testing in Furano, the factory test track, and I set a record there that lasted actually 8 years. And just to get that smile from him, that just a slight smile of satisfaction. I mean, it's so awesome, for a driver to see that, because he obviously, he approves. He gives you that smile of approval, if you will. So and again, yeah, magic times actually with these two individuals for sure.
Well, with Colin Chapman, he was a genius when it came to downforce. So I want to ask you this. But in 1978, the Brabham fan car debuted at the Swedish Grand Prix, driven by Niki Lauda. How long did it take you to figure out that that fan wasn't just used for cooling, but sucking that car to the track?
Oh, well, we knew that because it was not really that new because Jim Hall had done that with the Chaparrals, and so in the Can-Am series, and very successfully so. It's just that, that particular side of the aerodynamics was not regulated. So Gordon Kirby, not the Gordon Kirby, um,
No, I
it
think
is
it was Gordon Murray.
Gordon Murray, yeah.
Yeah.
Gordon Murray, the designer, he figured, well, we'll do that in Formula One, which is one step better than, the natural ground effect, just by designing it. And of course it worked. I mean, he was in a class of his own, so all we were doing is spitting rocks out of our mouth, because that's what that thing was doing. It was like like a vacuum cleaner, and anybody behind, I mean, all you got blasted, but at the time the race was over, the track was as clean as could ever be. So,
Now, you finished second
but
behind Nikki, didn't you, in the Swedish
I think
Grand
so,
Prix?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so how long did it take them to ban that car? Wasn't it just within a day or a week?
Immediately after that, yeah. I
Wow.
mean, it was, you had to try to imagine to have 20, a field of all those cars with those fans and so forth. I mean, you couldn't deal with it. I mean, it was dangerous. I mean, those things were spitting out, could have been spitting out bolts or whatever, So there was a danger aspect on top of everything else, So they obviously they had to deal with it on the rules side, and it was banned.
Well, was it 1979 in which the Lotus was banned for, was it a double ground effects design that Colin had created for the 79 car?
1980. I
1980.
think it was in 1980 where he came up with that. Actually, it was a car that it was sort of pushing the rules, to the point that he was actually getting downforce on the unsprung part of the car, of the suspension, which it's the optimum way to do it. But that was a no, clear no.
Yeah,
But he thought
but
he'd get around it. But
Yeah, but one of the things that I loved about the racing from the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s, I like the fact that people like Colin Chapman and others would push the envelope of car design, uh, maybe not to the point to what Frank Williams did with the 92, 93 Williams that basically could drive by itself. Technically, you just needed a driver. Um, but do you think the rules are too strict today and across all the different series that doesn't give car designers, so to speak, enough room to really push the envelope a little bit? Because now if they push the envelope, it's considered cheating.
well, here's the thing, Doctor. I think today for the technology that's available, I think the technical side of the sport that decides on rules, they have to keep so much in mind about and not make it so. You can make it so, as you said, that the cars almost drive for themselves. So they want to keep so much of it in the hands of the driver, and mechanically, just like for instance, you want to slightly change the aerodynamic of the front wings or something like that, and you have to do it mechanically. A mechanic has to do it. But you could easily do it, just on the steering wheel, just to do all those things. So they want to keep it as a sport as much as possible, and that's a daunting job, to really try to do that. Now, from a designer standpoint, yeah, you don't leave nothing on the table. I mean, you could see that in Formula One, they try to have flexible wings, so down the straightaway, they straighten out, so you don't have as much frontal area, and a lot of they try to always, the challenge is always to try to get away. It's just like a lawyer reading, trying to get around the law, if you will. That's how you win cases in court. And in motor racing, that's how you win races. If you really press the envelope to the limit and get away with it. And that's the trick for a driver. The same thing. As a driver, you got to go right to the limit. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. You're not. Somebody else will. So that's the challenge, and that's what makes it interesting, of course.
You know, with let's say from the Formula One cars from the 70s and 80s versus today, for you, how difficult was it to race Monaco knowing you were literally shifting gears by hand and not flicking the back of the steering wheel?
Well, you just did it. Everybody else had to do it, So it's like anything. A lot of time I hear even say, "Oh, well, it's going to get windy." You know what? Is it going to be windy only for yourself? It's windy for everybody. So you just deal with it. It's whoever deals with it better. I give you another example. I get complaints. I hear, "Oh, the track is so bumpy." Well, you know what? Deal with it, and maybe you can deal better. To be honest with you, I love bumpy tracks. I always said that. You know why? Because that's another area you could conquer that somebody out than some of the other. Even, you know, technically you think to yourself, I think I can handle that better, and I'm going to work on that because that's where you get an advantage. I mean, anybody can drive on a smooth track. Anybody. You see what I mean? So that's my point. It's in those days, okay, you had to shift gears like 5,000 times a race, so you did. You had a blister in your right hand, and that's good, so that means you were working. That's it. And it's amazing, you had to do sometime, you had to use the clutch in a lot of situations too, where, today, boom, boom, all you do is, but then you're expected to go quicker because you have less to do. So still the job of the driver is still very much the same, quite honestly. It's like anything else. If you're given more tools to the job, you just expect it to go faster.
Well, then let me
And
ask you this, Mario, because this year in Formula One at Spa, they only raced 3 laps behind the safety car because of the rain. But in 1976 at the Japanese Grand Prix, it rained. Nicky decided to retire on his own and saying that the race was too dangerous. How should Formula One handle extremely wet racetracks? Should they just grow a pair and race because they're race car drivers?
maybe uh, I don't know. I'm too much of a purist, I suppose, but at the same time, I figure, when you're on that dance floor, you got to dance whether you like the music or not. And if it's dangerous, all you do is deal accordingly. If you know that there's a river, you just do what you need to do in a river across a track, which is obviously the most dangerous part, in the wet, because you aquaplane there. But you just do it. You do it the way you should do it. It's there for everyone to deal the same way. So I could never, ever. They said, okay, anytime you say something about safety, then you get into the I don't know. it, it becomes sticky, if you will, you know. I like the sport, you know, it's got an element of danger, and so you just I could have never. I thought I was crying that day. I was crying for the spectators that were out there, you know, and it went for 6 7 hours, and then all of a sudden they give them three pace car laps, and then decide to call it, and then not even uh, you know, reschedule for the next day. That was I don't think that was acceptable in my
No,
opinion. So
I agree. I think that they should have postponed it, came back the next day. NASCAR does it all the time, and I can't see why Formula One did the same thing. But I want to move on a little bit to the IndyCar. What was your relationship like with Nigel Mansell at Newman Haas during the 93-94 season?
oh, we were like brothers, you know. So
You being facetious there?
a little bit, but you know, it was just one of those things. I think he captured you know, the imagination of the team and everyone else, and you know, he was treated really well there. And there were some other things that I'm not going to talk about, but some advantages that he had. But other than that, he still did a great job himself. I can't take that away from him. I mean, Nigel Mansell is a darn good driver, you know, and he took advantage of that. Some of those advantages disappeared the following year, as you can see. Then he disappeared. So, but at the same time, still, you know, he, credit where credit is due.
Well, let me ask you. I'll ask you a nicer question. How was your relationship with Paul Newman?
Uh, Awesome. I tell you, I miss that man. I could say I miss that man when I look at this picture in my office. You know, he meant so much to me in my life. He was, you know, just to have him in my life for so many years is something that I cherish, obviously, forever. And just to know how we met and how we sort of we kept some sort of relationship throughout until we finally came together, you know, on a team and going for the same objectives. Um, but what a hell of a guy this man was. In many ways, we obviously had the opportunity to spend some social time together, and he was a hoot. I mean, he really was. It was so much fun. We were up. I have a place in the Poconos. I have a lake and all the toys in the world there, and some of them are quite dangerous. And you know, he was one of those. He would delve into it. You know, anything that was really challenging, I mean, he'd go for it. And I love that about him. So, yeah, there's so many situations like that that, yeah, brings back just fond memories, as you can imagine.
Well, did he ask you some racing advice? Because I know that he loved racing.
Yeah, we talked about things. Yeah, of course. You know, it's interesting. Um, we were testing a road car, Mustang Cobra down in Atlanta, um, uh, and um, and he knew that track very well. You know, obviously the SCCA did a lot of races there, and so he we were comparing this Mustang with the Camaro. You know, that was a factory test, and so one of the he goes out there and he ran a quick time. He ran a quicker time than the Ford test driver. Then the Ford test, but he was asking me something. He rode with me a couple of days. Oh yeah, he says I was doing this. He said you're doing that, and so on and so forth. And he goes out. Then the Ford driver goes out there, tried to go quicker than Paul, and he crashed the car. You know, I don't know if he lost the job or not, but he crashed the car. So there you go. But Paul, like I said, he was one guy always up for a challenge, and I loved him.
Well, let me ask you something about the Indy 500. Why is it so difficult to win that race?
Well, it's a matter of reliability. You know, that's what I suffered. That's why I just, you know, as much as I would never give up, you know, anything that I've ever done or the opportunity to have gone through the decades and like we talked earlier, you know, learning about all the development and the things. But at the same time, today, the way the rules are, the cars have the best chance of finishing unless there's a mistake or a crash or something. But usually the engines just don't blow up anymore because you don't take everything out of them. They're supposed to mileage out, and
Wow.
um, and that's the problem that I had. I mean, throughout my career, this type of rule never came into effect until I don't know, 2004, 5 or 6, I think, even in Formula One. And then you can see that now, almost like the entire field finishes the races because you just don't have blowups. And that's one thing that I probably blew up 70,000 engines in my career. It's just that, sometimes 3 a week. And it's different times and different regulations.
Well, in 2003, you were 63 years old going to Indy. You were going to try to qualify Tony Kanaan's car, which was for your son Michael's team. Is that where you did the massive somersault on the back stretch at Indy?
Well, yeah, the somersault was actually coming out of turn one, but it was one of those things that I was slipstreaming Kenny Brack. I was doing practice with free practice, and um, and I was trying to get a big lap time, because by myself I was quickest that day, and so anyway, he had an engine go. He blew up the engine. And he had a big crash, and there was a chunk of the wall, part of the safe wall that was in the middle of the track, and I hit that, and my car started flying up in the air, and I had 3 flips backwards. But it was just one of those things. I had no warning whatsoever because during practice, you don't have all the communications that you do during an official practice, if you will. Because I was actually testing the car in case I would have had to qualify that car because Tony Kanaan had a wrist injury a week before at a race in Japan. And it was a minor injury, but it was a question that he could not potentially qualify, but he could definitely race. And in Indianapolis, the way the rules are, if a qualified driver can qualify the car, if another drive takes over, as long as you're fast within the 33 fastest cars, you have to start last. So at least you're protecting that he can race. Protection for the sponsors, and that's all. That was my objective there for my son. He asked me to do that, and so yeah, absolutely. And I was right on pace. Quite honestly, I felt really good with the car. The car was set up quite nicely, and we learned a lot that day. And unfortunately, it ended up the way. But if I had to qualify, if I still had to qualify for him, I would have. Not a problem.
Yeah, I bet you could still qualify today.
Well, I don't know. I think, yeah, I think I could do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
at least in my own mind, I think I could do that. Yeah.
Well, now, are you still driving that double seat Indy car?
Yes. Yes. Of course. Of
Wow. Now,
course.
how does one get to do that?
I don't know. I'm really enjoying it for a lot of reasons. Obviously, it gives me maybe just even some reason to even to stay more physically fit, if you will. Uh, but at the same time, it's a great thing for the sport. Quite honestly, to showcase. There's no better way to showcase our sport because it's such a non-participant sport in so many ways. And I just love the comment that you get from passengers, many times. I think they come away with a different, much more appreciation for what's going on as far as what the drivers have to go through and all that. Because sometimes I hear that comment all the time. It's, oh, we only did 2 laps and the race today is, if it's on the road course, it's 90 laps or it's 20. You know what I mean? And then you got so many cars around you. I don't know how you guys do it. You know what I mean? It's that kind of a thing. So, and on the other side, I truly enjoy myself.
Well, I love the fact that IndyCar is coming back to be so popular. You know, the years of the IRL, I don't know what that was all about. We went from kart to IRL back to IndyCar, and I am so glad to see that people are getting more and more excited every season with all of the drivers. And here we are, have what Alex Palou won the championship this year, and he's only what 24 years old. That's incredible.
Oh, it's the series is really at a good place right now, with so much talent, so much really young talent, and also I keep saying the veterans are still young enough; they're going to be around for quite some time, and so you got a great mix of drivers. You got a strong international participation, plus really good. Finally, got a good crop of American young guys out there that represent the future of our sport and in a very strong, positive way. So, yeah, it's fun. It's some great racing, as you know. You know that we've been watching, especially this season. I think, and it's better and better. So,
Now, I'm
IndyCar
here.
is at a place right now.
Well, I'm hearing, of course, we're all hearing a lot of the news in Formula One that your son, Michael Andretti, is looking for a team. Is he going to be the one that brings the American drivers back to Formula One?
Well, that's his intention ultimately. You know, it's no secret he's been kind of looking. He's had this idea in his head for the last couple of years, and he's just trying to find that proper opportunity if it comes. And he has some great people behind him, you know, to do this thing properly. So I'm so proud of him because he's so ambitious. As you can see, if you look at the amount of disciplines that he participates in as an owner, you know, that's really interesting in my opinion. And you know, kudos to him. You know, he really looks at motor racing as not just one particular discipline. You know, he embraces it all. He looks at sports cars and everything, and he had looked at even opportunities in NASCAR, which you know that could happen sometime in the future. I mean, he's in the supercars in Australia, you know, which is like NASCAR of Australia, you know, if you will, you know. So again, he nothing is off limits for him, and again, sooner or later, I think I would suspect that he'll be there.
Yeah, and I think Michael is really in the greatest position to be the next Roger Penske of our time, and because he's got a lot of Mario in him too, so that helps.
Well, you know, the beautiful thing about anything in the sport, it's someone that's done something more or better than you and motivates you. And he's motivated by that. You know, he's still young enough, you know, that, you know, he keeps winking at Roger. You know, I say, okay, Roger, like at Indy, he has, I don't know, 16, 17 races, and Michael only has five, but he's second to Roger as the team owner of winners. And he said, Roger, I'm beginning to see you. And so I like that. And I think, again, right now, there's, I don't know any other team that is involved in uh, so many disciplines as Michael is right now, even as we speak. You know,
And
so he spreads his wings.
and he really has an eye for talent as well.
I think so. I think Michael knows quite well just what makes the world go around in our sport as far as when it comes to engineers, drivers, you know, you have to arm yourself with the best possible, otherwise you don't get it done. So that's the secret, if it is a secret, but that's what you got to do.
Yeah, and I'm for next season. I'm really going to be rooting for Roman Grosjean. I know he signed with Andretti, and I really would love to see him not only win his first IndyCar race because he's right there, but I believe he could end up being running for the championship, and I hope he wins it.
Well, you know, he's a very interesting character, you know, and he's done well in Formula One. I remember actually the first time that I presented the trophies at Austin. he was on the podium with the Renault at the time, and he had a few podiums in Formula One. He had some close potential wins, and he's a good driver. He showed that clearly, and he's loving what he's doing. He's loving this because he likes the fact that it's not as technical as Formula One, the series, but because it's a spec series, but from a driver standpoint, you're pretty much driving the same thing as the guy next to you, so it gives you a lot of that confidence. You know what? I got the same material here under me as you do, so maybe it's my day today, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I like that. I like the fact that IndyCar is really a driver series.
It
You
is,
never know who's going to win the next
yes.
race. It's not as predictable as Formula One is. So I think that's why a lot of fans are gravitating to IndyCar. But Mario, what is next for Mario Andretti?
Just keep living the dream. Doc, I trying to do all the things that I enjoy, close to the sport. I'm just loving the fact that Michael and Jeff, they all give me reason to stay close to the sport. And I have a wonderful daughter who looks after me now when my wife is gone, and I'm surrounded by a great team around me. Amy, Patty, and my man. So again, we're staying busy. We have some good businesses that are doing well for us. So yeah, we have a lot on the plate, and I love it. I'm doing a lot of traveling. I haven't given up anything yet, so we keep on going.
Well, Mario, I want to thank you so much for honoring us with your presence and your time today to walk us through not only your career, but also some of your thoughts and opinions on today's racing. And many blessings to you and your family.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I'm very impressed at how much you know about our sport, and I love that.
Well, I have followed uh, all the racing series my whole life. I still remember the first time that I saw a Formula One race on television. It was the 1975 Monaco Grand Prix. Of course, Nicky won that particular race. When it came to NASCAR, I think the first televised one that I actually saw on my little black and white TV when I was a kid is when Richard Petty won the actual race when he was actually in third. But Kel Yarborough and Bobby Allison decided to have a fight after their little crash. So I followed racing forever, and being here in Houston, the town of AJ Foyt, and seeing him race midgets in the Astrodome, and I still remember him flipping the car over and ended that race early. But racing, oh my gosh, there's no greater sport than
I
auto
raced
racing.
the midget at the Astrodome, Doc.
You have
I
raced at
raced
the.
the midget at the Astrodome.
Well, you may have been in that same race. Being AJ being the hometown hero, that's all they were probably promoting. But
Yeah.
again, Mario, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have this time with you today. And you are always welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go, the living legend, Mario Andretti. And we'll be right back after this.